Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Kanchi Shah, and I head the business for strategizing out of the EMEA markets. It gives me immense pleasure in welcoming you to the first episode of the webinar series on proactive business resilience insights. I welcome you on behalf of Dell Technologies, New Wave, and Strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, the world in which we live is changing. The threats we face seem to be growing both in volume and complexity. Each day, we grow more connected in terms of technology, economies, and infrastructure than we've ever been in the past. While natural disasters often grab headlines, human created events can also have a widespread consequences. Because these crises and disruptions are so deeply linked with the very nature of business we conduct and how we pursue them, it's become increasingly important to view risks as more intrinsic and ubiquitous than exceptional. They're no longer once in lifetime concerns. In other words, risks are a part of the spectrum of operational factors that organizations are now being built around. To encompass those factors means focusing not just on recovery, but also on agility and the ever greater need for resilience so as to reduce the impact of events and speed up response. Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin with our first session, which is a discussion on the future of enterprise business resilience. Joining us on this session, we have Mr. Vijendran Sridharan, who's the CISO and DPO for Capillary Technologies, and Mr. Amit Dhawan, CISO and DPO, BirlaSoft. I'd now like to hand over the session to Mr. Amit Dhawan. Over to you, Amit.
Hi, good day, everybody. Uh,
Hi, Amit. Good day. Good day to all of you.
so, in a perfect world, an organization's systems would run without problem 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But we don't live in a perfect world. Things happen. And when they do, the organization's ability to carry on in the face of adversity will depend on the resiliency of its systems. Being a cyber resilient organization means being able to fight through adversity and continue to operate even if it's in a scaled down mode. The test for resiliency is more stringent now with the increasing volume and sophistication of attacks than it ever was. Going by the recent global survey by Sophos, which is a pretty well-known cybersecurity firm, India is one of the most affected countries in terms of ransomware attacks. Almost 68% of Indian organizations surveyed were hit by ransomware in the last 12 months. Another study states that about 67% of Indian organizations whose data was encrypted paid a ransom to get back their data. Interestingly, on a global level, the total cost of recovery from a ransomware attack has more than doubled in a year, increasing from about 750K in 2020 to almost 1.85 million in 2021. Though the average ransom payment was about 150K, paying up often doesn't pay off, with only 4% people or less have got their data back. Cyber resiliency is therefore the point of focus, and it emphasizes on what happens when cybersecurity measures fail. The systems could fail because of various reasons: human errors, unforeseen outages, weather, or any other disruptions. Resiliency involves putting measures in place to minimize the impact of these disruptions. Elements of a cyber resiliency blueprint depends on various factors. And we are here today to discuss these with a very good friend of mine, Mr. Vijendran. He has been a CISO for various enterprises, various large multinational companies, and has an enviable experience in this role. So welcome, Vijay, to this discussion.
Thank you, Amit. Happy to be here with all of you and you.
So just to start off, Vijay, all organizations, information is pretty important to them. And the security vulnerabilities are another angle. So how, in your opinion, how do you identify this information and vulnerabilities and link the two in an organization?
Okay, that's a very, very important question. or the first most important question from the context of Amit, what you brought up as the kind of attacks like ransomware. Okay, companies have asset inventory. The meaning of asset inventory has to change along with the methods used by the attackers in the wild. Okay, so if I look at asset inventory per se, okay, today my asset inventory till date has servers and applications, laptops, and a very well managed asset inventory through a CMDB will have own licenses as assets, right? Now we will include web servers, application servers, database servers, and now we are virtualizing a lot. So we identify virtual machines or virtual servers. If we are on the cloud, we identify instances or pods in the Kubernetes and the Docker's world, right? Microservices, right? We are identifying these as assets, which is a natural extension or progression from physical on-prem infrastructure. We can actually extend and understand the cloud space. Now we are getting into the containers and container orchestration tools like Kubernetes and those, right? Now, what I have seen is where we may miss out in this asset inventory method is inventorying the asset method is assets like your payment gateway, your software development kits. For example, if you are having a payment gateway integration, a payment gateway will give you a SDK, software development kit, right? They give you, and that kind of goes and sits inside your code. Use a vendor like New Relic for monitoring. They give you a piece of code, right? That code we need to identify as an asset because that code could come with a vulnerability. Anything that could cause a vulnerability to us, a payment gateway SDK, okay, or a New Relic kind of a piece of code which sits in your code and helps you do application performance monitoring.
This is a fantastic insight, Vijay. Wherein the traditional model has been listing down all your assets, and then we transitioned over to listing down the information sources, and now the partner integrations. This is a fantastic thing, and I think people will take it back and start implementing these in their organizations as well. So this is a fantastic insight. But something that you discussed about managing the vulnerability landscape. So yes, the information part is one, and I'll take it to the next level. So when you develop a protection strategy for all these things, you spoke about the cloud also coming in. Now, cloud, moment we take from an on-prem environment to a cloud-based environment, these are two different animals. The native services of the cloud and the storage structure and the mindset of the developers and the normal people who go to the cloud. So how do you build your production strategy around the services by the cloud, by the information that you mentioned, which is both on-prem and the cloud, and the way the people have been working on these technologies in the cloud and on-prem in a hybrid model?
So what happens, Amit, this question happens to be becomes more important than even what we thought the previous one was, right? Now the changing environment within the cloud, and I'm sure now even the on-prem, the biggies, let us take the banks and the asset management firms, very large ones, or very large retail and PNG or HUL or Unilever or whomever we take, they are all in the cloud as well in a hybrid model, right? They are now they have increased the speed of adoption of cloud, but they have the on-prem as well, right? A very large on-prem presence, which will continue. Now, how do these changes? How are we going to harness or manifest these changes for information security inclusion in it? The inclusivity of information security requirements in these very high velocity changes. I would call them as high velocity changes, right? In a particular direction they are going. At times it's a high speed. At times it's a high velocity. Velocity is the particular direction, right? Now this is a mammoth challenge. There is no perfect solution to it, but there is near perfect solution to it. One is a, a very systematic and at times ad hoc also if required, a dialogue, conversation. What our stakeholder teams have is they have Jira kind of tools, right? ServiceNow and Jira kind of tools. They capture all efforts in those tools. So they ask us or they don't ask us. Two things which help us is, which has helped me is my team getting glued into the Jira, looking at the tickets, looking at the features that are going in through the tickets. Okay, one. Second is adding myself into the product roadmap discussions. What is coming? Okay, and third is once I know what are the product roadmaps, I know the features, the modules that are getting impacted. I come back to my team and say, hey, can you keep a watch on this? There's a Jira ticket that you can expect. This feature has been approved for this sprint, right? Which means you need to look for it. Okay. Yes, in between, there could be some discussions which could happen across the table and I'm not there, right? Those I have to catch them in a tea time conversation with the tech, VP tech or engineering. Okay, at various levels, we need to, some will get missed. What gets missed in my conversation should get caught in the Jira tickets. So Jira tickets is I'm taking Jira as an example because that's where in the past 4 firms I have worked, all of them have been on Jira, at least in Jira. So there has to be some funnel where everything goes down in the funnel, tapers down in a funnel shape, where we get a visibility. Now everything is very tough thing to achieve, but most of it, okay? And that's where the residual risk is always there. But one is a systematic process like Jira or any workflow tool, ticketing tool, or Remedy or whatever it is, BMC Remedy or whatever we use. And the other side is our one-on-one catch up with the tech leads. Let our team catch up with their peers at the lead levels, and we catch up at the head levels, head of department levels on a periodic basis. So we can probe and understand what's in their mind for next 2 to 3 months.
So I think in a what you've expressed is in a very, very implementation perspective, 2 major buzzwords that we security folks always use. One is getting the security culture in place. I think what you've emphasized, and I think all strategies, protection strategies depend a lot on the culture. And what you've done and what you're trying to do is setting the culture right, which is fantastic. And the second part, which is an intangible part of the culture, is to get a buy-in of security by design principle. It's a very, very difficult thing to implement in any organization, and more so in an organization where you are there, where a lot of development and a lot of the recent young mind developers who are actually out to change the world are there. So security by design and culture and building them into the protection strategy is an amazing activity. Now I'll just take a little step deeper into this. Now these 2 things definitely help you launch a strategy which is good for you. But these are unfortunately or fortunately non-technical ones. Now, how do you create a technical environment for identifying these attacks, identifying things which are going wrong, and implementing them? What are your technical measures? How you go about these?
Okay, Amit, you expressed it in 2 different ways: technical challenges and technical measures, right? Yeah, or the measures is to how to overcome the challenges. What measures to take? I could read it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. See, in terms of identifying and addressing it, one is first thing is an acceptability of the InfoSec within the firm. Okay, the InfoSec function being accepted across your firm is so important. Okay, your engineering head, HR head, your finance head, your CFO, your CTO, and most importantly, your CEO. Okay, I will use the word, your CEO's blessing is the most important one. And when good work is done, the CEO and the rest of the management, when they appreciate it, there is a lot of looking up to the security function that happens from even the millennials, right? I have been blessed with that environment.
Fantastic.
Okay, thanks to my CEO who does that. He's a person who understands security so well. Okay, one of those very few business heads whom I have met who understand security so well. So one is your leadership support. Second is support within the across stakeholders, technology, engineering, HR, customer service, because data is in many places, right? Now this happens over 2 to 3 years. A respect or for the work of a department, when you come in newly, your predecessor has set a benchmark or a baseline. If you have set a benchmark or baseline, you are lucky with good baseline or good benchmark. Okay. Otherwise, if you have to start little below the average bar, then you have to work hard. But it takes 2 to 3 years hard work for the CISO, the entire security and the privacy function operations team to win their currency, equity in the minds of the engineer to the department heads of various departments or the associates to the department heads through hard work and collaboration, not becoming a policing authority. It is a compassionate approach to all our colleagues. Okay, and also keeping in mind the overall objective of the company, not always saying this is a control that needs to be there. There are different methods of implementing a control and still allowing the business to progress without anchoring the ship before it starts sailing, right?
These are fantastic insights. Rather, I'll tell you what I tell my business folks, that I'm the brakes for you guys. Now the statement looks very it kinds of puts a negative thought process. But then I add on when I say that if you don't have brakes in your car, you will not even drive at a mile an hour. Okay, you will not be able to stop. You won't know what to do. So the brakes help you go faster. And we in the InfoSec business are here to add value to your proposals, add value to your business, so that we all can progress, the company can progress, and you can run faster than what you were running earlier. See, in a software development environment, the cost of remediation is way high. Unless you are able to catch those problems, shift left, DevOps model, and the standard thing. So if in Jira you're putting your non-functional requirements along with your functional requirements, life is sorted before the actually software comes out for product. So that helps. And great insights, Vijay. A little more on the same thing that we were discussing. In your response plans, which incident response plans or the vulnerability remediation plans, how do you define your roles and responsibilities? These days, those lines are graying between IT and IT operations and information security. Application development, privacy, there are far too many fields which are important to an organization, and the lines between them are graying. How are you managing this challenge, and how are you defining roles and responsibilities so that the work gets done? I'll not go into compliance, but so that the work gets done.
Roles and responsibilities. Amit, we all know all our stakeholders ask for much more. I'll state this: RACI, responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Right? That kind of a table many people want. When an incident happens, Amit, you would have seen it again and again. I would have seen it again and again. There are 3-4 champions within the company. Whatever happens, they call them. Okay, and you show them the plan, they'll say, Vijay, keep it aside. I'll recover this.
Correct.
So now what happens is many times roles and responsibilities. Let us say I'll take one simple example. A system fails, a component fails. Will you, if I, in the current model, I have templates, I can just go and install an entire cluster in AWS within 4 hours. Fixing a particular component which has failed might even end up taking 8 to 12 hours at times. Okay, which one? The decision to be made is what is important. At the time, we allow the engineers to, the guys who know the job very well. Okay, I wrote the plan talking to those engineers, right? They know what command and which area, which variable or what they have to change, what they need to keep constant in that recovery effort and make it work.
Thanks a lot, Vijay, for all these insights. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this session. What we have, the key takeaways that I see from our conversation today is something that, yes, nothing comes free. There are no free lunches. So you have to work very hard. You have to go down to basics. You have to understand how the language of controls translates into the technology which is working on ground, how to translate the buzzwords like security by design, security culture, and how it translates into the roles and responsibilities that have been created. And another leadership lesson that comes out of this is there will be heroes. There are people who are amazing at their jobs. Give them an opportunity. Do not write things in concrete. Do not let your ego drive your business. And the resiliency that we are looking at, and the vulnerability management, and that we all CISOs look for, will be solved in no time. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Vijay, once again.
Thank you, Amit. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you very much, Vijendran and Amit, for that engaging session. Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is a solution showcase on simplifying vulnerability management. And to take us through this, I'd now like to welcome Mr. Akhil Rainey, Chief Technology Officer, Strobes. Over to you, Akhil.
Hello everyone, my name is Akhil Rainey and today I'm going to talk about the challenges in vulnerability management space, especially when we are dealing with vulnerabilities at scale. So firstly, let me give you a quick introduction on who I am and what I do. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Strobes. Before that, I was a Chief Technology Officer at vSecure App. So working at vSecure App, I got a chance to design security roadmaps for many large enterprise organizations, especially from banking, finance, and healthcare industries. While working with these organizations, what I've realized was the vulnerability management process was a bit too chaotic. What they used to do was run an SS scan, export those issues, track them on an Excel sheet, and figure out what vulnerabilities have to be patched first. This whole process was way too tiring and used to eat a lot of IT and SecOps team's time. Well, this definitely cannot scale, and there is a high chance that we miss out on fixing a lot of immediate risks. What we actually need is vulnerabilities, assets along with their context, and threat context. Now let me explain each of this is in an easier way. Assets and their context. Assets can be anything like endpoints, servers, applications, routers, cloud services, cloud accounts, and more. And when I say context, I basically mean the meta information that tags along with that assets. Do the assets hold PII information? Does the asset belong to HR department, sales department, or any other department in general? Are they publicly available or exposed? And so on. And coming to vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are those that we get from a typical vulnerability scan or a pen test on the assets that we give as a scope. Usually these vulnerabilities are presented with a CVSS scoring or a severity that typically is hard-coded within the vulnerability scanner and does not have any understanding of asset context or asset sensitivity. So when a vulnerability that says RCE comes along probably with a CVSS scoring of 8 or 9 without actually understanding the asset context. Third thing, threat context and indicators. So most of the vulnerabilities are related to software or OEM, and these vulnerabilities are tagged along with CVEs, which we call as an indicator. Now, like I said earlier, a vulnerability comes with a severity or a CVSS tag, but does not take into account if a vulnerability has a malware attached to it, if it's a 0-day, if it's been used for ransomware, if it's been actively exploited, and so on. Now the best part. Now, if we aggregate and correlate these three things, we would get a better view and priority on what to fix first. So let me give you a couple of examples. So for example, if you know a vulnerability has been actively exploited, but is in an asset with just static data, you can park it aside for a couple of days. Whereas a same vulnerability, if it's inside a critical with PI information, I would want that to be closed overnight or maybe even in the next couple of hours. To do this kind of aggregation and correlation, I 100% believe that there is a need for a platform. So we as engineers are working day in and day out to build a platform that solves this exact issue. Now that we know the challenges and problems, let's deep dive into the platform. I know your first impression looking at the screen is like, wow. Well, this is Stropes, a risk-centered vulnerability management platform that makes VM faster and saves a lot of time for SecOps and IT teams. What you're looking at is an organization list. Stropes was designed to help a CISO from large organization or even SMBs. For example, a large bank CISO can manage all their subsidiaries and business units from one single place. Let's open an organization and explore what Stropes has to provide. After clicking on our organization, we land on an overview page where we get to know some quick information about the entire org. The first thing we need for Stropes to work is assets. Like I mentioned previously, assets can be endpoints, servers, cloud accounts, web, or mobile applications. Stropes supports adding and segregating them all. To create an asset inside the platform, you can do it in multiple ways. You can create an asset manually. You can import assets using different connectors like AWS Asset Inventory, Nessus, or even Expose. If that doesn't work for you, you can even import a CSV into the platform. Once we have assets in place, you can manage assets at scale. The platform is powered by GraphQL and query language. You can manage assets via the data table or programmatically use our API clients. For example, want to know what are the critical assets? Just add a filter with business sensitivity as critical, and you can get to know all the assets that are critical. The use cases of using query language are infinite. Now that we have assets in place, it's time to configure continuous scanning on those assets or to even import vulnerabilities. The platform integrates with a variety of tools, vulnerability scanners, and more. We support DAS scanners, SAS scanners that also include software composition analysis, container scanners, infrastructure scanners, and even cloud configuration scanners. As of now, we have close to 45 integrations which are powered by a integration framework we built at the backend. This framework allows us to seamlessly bring in new integration as and when required. On an average, we can take about 7 to 12 odd days to build an integration. Using integrations, doing the scanning is pretty easy. For example, you want to import a Nessus report. To do that, head over to Import Connectors, select the required options, choose the Nessus report that you want to import, and click Submit. All the assets and vulnerabilities will be ingested into the platform. The other use case is continuously scanning a code repository for vulnerabilities. Well, we have many open source scanners inbuilt into the platform with CI/CD capabilities. To do that, pick up your favorite scanner, select the repository you want to scan, and configure the other settings that are required. Schedule a scan and click Submit. This will give you the ability to get continuous feedback in the form of risk in those repositories. Now that we figured out how to import and continuously set up scans using different scanners and for different assets, let's head over to vulnerabilities page to manage them. Again, the vulnerabilities page is powered by a data table, GraphQL, and query language. The vulnerabilities which are ingested within the platform are also enriched with threat intel based on CVE indicators. So for example, a vulnerability that has a CVE will be enriched with exploits, threat indicators, malwares, ransomware, 0 days, and more. The threat intel consumed by the platform is homegrown, and we scrap data from various public plus private threat intel feeds. The secret sauce of the platform is how the vulnerabilities, threat context, asset context are correlated to give a platform unique score called as priority score. For example, vulnerabilities with exploit available that are actively being exploited in a critical asset are given higher priority than a vulnerability with no exploit in a non-sensitivity asset. This way, you'll get to know what vulnerabilities to fix first. With the help of priority scores and query language, we can manage vulnerabilities faster. Let's say your IT team wants to know what are the top most critical vulnerabilities they need to patch first. Head over to the filters, select the exploit and priority filters, and click on Export CSV. They get a list of assets and they can move on to patching. Once they patched, they can come back to the platform anytime and move the state of those vulnerabilities to committed. A SecOps team on the other side can reconfirm on those and move them to resolved. A full VM cycle powered by Risk can be achieved like this. Stropes also offers various dashboards for CISO and other stakeholders to understand the risk of an organization at any point of the day, week, or month. We show the risk timeline, current risk score, state-wise vulnerabilities, priority-wise, and more. Well, it doesn't end here. Companies can also request for custom dashboards, and we would be able to achieve that easily. Now that we explored the features, let's talk about the deployment model of Stropes. Stropes was first designed to serve enterprise customers, so we designed the application as an on-premise solution. Later, looking at the traction from SMBs, we also created a multi-tenant SaaS, which is highly scalable. I hope you have enjoyed the demo. We are open for questions and queries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Akhil. Our next session, ladies and gentlemen, is titled Technology in Motion. And for this segment, I'd like to welcome Mr. Nitin Bhatia, Software Sales Manager, Data Protection Solutions, India for Dell Technologies, who's in a conversation with Mr. Shantanu Ganguly, Chief Executive Officer, Strategy. Over to you, Shantanu.
Good day, everyone. This is Shantanu from Strategic. I am the CEO, and I'm delighted to welcome you back into today's webinar, Proactive Business Resilience Insights. As the subject says, this is something very, very interesting and relevant for all our businesses as we lead diverse technology functions in the business organization. In context of today and post the pandemic disruption that we have all gone through deep and intense, we realize all businesses rely on digital technologies, right? And in a perfect world, the organization systems would run without problems 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and across 365 days in a year. But unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world, right? Disruptions do happen, and as and when they happen, it is the business organization's ability to carry on and continue with their critical operations in the face of that adversity, which defines the resiliency of systems, resiliency of the business. And that's where this proactive resilience and this whole concept is of critical importance ever than before now, and definitely into the future. To tell us more on this topic and to share highlights of technology in motion, I'm delighted to invite in this conversation Nitin Bhatia, Software Sales Manager, Data Protection Solutions at Dell Technologies India. Hi Nitin, thanks for joining us today. Welcome to our conversation.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
So, Nitin, our audience today, who are primarily technology, security, decision makers, influencers, and practitioners, would be keen to hear from you how to plan and implement robust data security and data risk mitigation strategies across the business enterprise, right? So, when it comes to reliable business resilience, what would be the top 3 value proposition or unique highlights from Dell Technologies DPS portfolio?
Sure. So, Shantanu, I think I'm going to be doing a step back on this first question, where it is important to know what are we trying to protect. So, it first starts with understanding the value of information, understanding the value of data. And that is where the Dell Technology solution plays a vital role through our consulting services in identifying this information. What is the most critical mass that could get an organization out of business? Today, you're looking at different attacks, different types of attack, a mix of attack that happens when it comes to attackers, or I would say hacktivists acting towards your organization. Today, there are government-sponsored attacks. There are various means which takes your organization down. So the most critical part today is building up a cyber resilient architecture. And architecture matters is one important factor that we've been speaking to a lot of customers as an advisor. When we're building an architecture, there are 3 major parts to a cyber recovery architecture. One is making sure that it is isolated. Second, very important that it is immutable. And third, it is important that we are able to get as much information from it and make sure that you are ready even after you recover. For a lot of forensics to do, why did this happen? More importantly, using technologies when it comes to our number 1 product, data domain, understanding the data even before it is hidden. That's the key USP that you can get from a Dell Technology solution from Dell DPS.
Excellent. And then, as you've rightly mentioned, defining that holistic architecture first, analyzing the type and nature of data, and then being able to correlate and measure possible business impact, and then sort of designing the mitigation strategy aligned to this holistic ecosystem or architecture centric approach, I think is the most scientific way of doing things so far as data protection and risk mitigation strategies are concerned. Now, within coming to a situation where we have all experienced that unforeseen adversities do happen, right? So we all went through a situation where majority of workforce were forced to either work from home, they couldn't turn up into their work premises, etc. So and disruptions each and every industry vertical experience through, some of them still going through in different levels of impact. So how soon and how best can a business recover should an unforeseen disruption happen? Towards that, from a solutioning standpoint, tell us some highlights.
So, Chandra, I'll just peel the onion and make sure that our audience gets the view of how do we recover when the cyber attack happens, right? It is when it comes to, we're talking about recovering from a 0-day situation, which means the impact to the organization is already happened. And the moment you have this solution implemented, we're talking about first making sure that we are getting you back into business by recovering the periphery applications which are dependent for your organization to come back. And I'll give you examples like an Active Directory information. That is the most important part for even your user to authenticate today when the recovery has to happen. More importantly, we are targeting the backup workloads where we're making a copy of that information, keeping it secure, as I said, in an isolated environment, and making a immutable copy of it. So once the immutable copy is there, you are sure of that in the cyber recovery world, your data is sanitized enough to make sure it is recoverable. So now you have a copy of data which can be recovered, which can be accessed, even whatever goes wrong with the organization. So from a recovery standpoint, once you sanitize your environment, this information is readily available for you in the world. And it is about as good as storing a copy of the information from your backup, which is lying in the vault in isolation with the intelligence. So it can happen in minutes. It depends on the quantity of data that you need to get back. And we've had recoveries within a day where people have been back to operations, day-to-day operations, at least from a core platform where they can start doing their invoices, billings, and each data is identified differently.
Excellent. That whole concept of a cyber recovery vault and an immutable copy of data is something which is very, very powerful and so very relevant, especially when we all take into context the volume of targeted attacks, ransomware kind of attacks, which are becoming so very common even for business organizations these days, right? So one really needs to plan proactively and be forward looking in terms of anticipating those, and then be ready from a people, process, technology standpoint. So Nitin, while you have touched upon already on these, but if you could elaborate a bit on the data integrity and the security aspects of the cyber recovery vault solution or similar solutions that you spoke about, because it is not only important to recover the volumes of data which we want to leverage, but also with as much precise levels of accuracy and with I would say impenetrable or impregnable security, right? So if you could emphasize how that is taken care of, leveraging maybe artificial intelligence or as much human intervention free automation.
Sure. So, Chandra, I'll put this into 3 categories right now. Okay. When we speak to our customers, this is something that I have been always prominently educating them with, saying cyber resilience is a wall that you will try and build. As much amount of entry points that you define is what your data security will be defining, right? So we already have the perimeters in place. We have DLPs, insider threat. So different threats, you need to implement different strategies. And more importantly, when we start a conversation, and when, as I said, our consulting team helps you identify the data, but a lot number of times customers have this information at hand. I've had customers who've come back and said, Nitin, believe me, I don't look at the most billing platform that is important, but if you could keep a copy of this formulas that we've developed in last so many years of our business, just keep this 10 terabyte of data secure. And that starts with the practice of good, better, and best. Okay, and I will categorize the solution into good, where we are talking about just keeping a copy of that information into an immutable infrastructure on a disk platform which could recover fast, which means you know that the data is sanitized. There is not going to be any impact. This is the most critical heartbeat environment. You've done all your scannings around it. It just needs to be kept in a worm kind of a device, which is immutable, so that nothing can be written onto it. And that copy is maintained. So that's where the good starts. At Good, we've put technologies into our product. And I'll give you as a part of this conversation. A lot of times, as we're dealing with backup information, right, it is important that even the NTP clock tampering could impact the backup environment, right? I just need to move your attention off. I will change the clock of your devices and everything is being erased. It's self-destructive. Now, whether it's self-destructive, we've made sure that our technologies are in such a way that even after the access that has been with the administrator, he cannot range it between a day. It is few minutes that he can range into, but he cannot move to a day. Over and above that, we've had advancement into the technology where we're talking about a make-a-check model, which means a security officer and an administrator coming together can only delete information. So that's the next level of security into the vault itself. So it could start with the biometric access into the rack versus doing a make-a-checker environment. And now this was elevation from good to a better kind of a situation, where you now have two people coming in together only for information. Now I'll come to the best part where we're talking about the intelligence. As I said, it is immutable, isolated, immutable, and then it is intelligence. So we have our OEM partner index engine, where we're using a product called as CyberSense, which doesn't do metadata search. A lot number of times, and I would not want to name people here, but people say, once I've done the search on my metadata, I am securing that my backup is readable. But believe me, if you get an intelligence of understanding that there has been a change in the way the data is written, there's been a large change, you're able to give a lot of information pre your attack to make sure that your data is secure. So the intelligence that we're talking about is AI driven, where we're talking about close to 1,000 plus ransomwares that we are analyzing and making sure that every information that lands in your vault is being looked upon. And over and above that, this is looked upon without even recovering your data, which means it is cost effective. Imagine an organization saying, I have 100 plus terabytes of information, which is going to convert into petabytes of information as backup. And that needs to be scanned and intelligence to be derived out of it. It is sheer time that we are against. Just to give you a context, up to 197 days is what an organization takes even to detect that they've been impacted. Now, imagine if all this data is available, petabytes of scan, what is that we're leading to? So these are the three pillars and three solutions that we're getting to the table as data protection division of Dell Technologies, making sure that the data is in a vault, it has the intelligence, and it can in a recoverable state.
Awesome, excellent. I think Nitin Bhatia, thank you for brilliantly summarizing unique highlights of data protection solution capabilities from Dell Technologies. As we wrap up this session for our audience, here is a quick tip I would want to leave you with on some of the points Nitin already shared, plus summarizing couple from my end, which are, say, top 5 common elements of how you develop a cyber resiliency blueprint. And it's more of a sort of broad guidelines of approach. So number one, Nitin already mentioned, identify your vital information and security vulnerabilities, right? So you first define your ecosystem, analyze what's more important versus less, where you have maximum business impact. And once you know that, prioritized categorization, then you can decide upon the next steps. Secondly, once you know what to protect and in what category, you then decide about implementing the necessary safeguards, the proactive safeguards or preventive safeguards that you would use in terms of technology, in terms of processes, in terms of people and skills to protect critical infrastructure and services. Right? Number three, in spite of all the safeguards, we all face situations where disruptions do happen. So if a disruption or an attack actually happens and we experience it, how do we detect it? So there has to be a solid implementation of a detection system and our ability to assess, detect, and implement a timely response. That's number three, so that we try to contain it in the shortest possible time and minimize the impact to business. Fourth point is about creating a response plan. Again, more from a technology, people, process standpoint, with clearly defining roles and responsibilities, who will do what in time of a crisis or a disruption, while trying to minimize the business impact, because that advanced definition, a clear plan, and some training and regular review, some simulations, make sure that when an actual disruption and response situation occurs, your team works like a very well synchronized system, and then in reality you are able to contain the impact to business to as minimal as possible. And last but not the least, Nitin elaborated on these. How do you develop and implement a plan to restore any data or services affected by an attack? That's where the relevance of the cyber resiliency vault and then immutable copy of data, with all the intelligence Nitin spoke about, comes into relevance. So thank you, Nitin, for this short but very precise and crisp and high impact discussion. Truly appreciate you taking off time and sharing this knowledge and snippets of very compelling solution highlights with our audience. So while I sign off at this moment to our audience, don't go away. We'll be right back with the next session in a moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nitin. Thank you very much, Shantanu, for that engrossing and thought-provoking conversation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to bring in our next segment, which is titled Profiles in Success. And our session is going to have inputs by Mr. Vasudevan Subramanian, who is the Managing Director for New Wave Computing, in a conversation with Mr. Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer at Strategink. Over to you, Arjun.
Hello and welcome back. I'm your host, Arjun Vishwanathan. And to take our discussions and fascinating conversations around cyber resilience as well as resurgence forward, please put your hands together to welcome a very dear friend and an industry leader in his own might, Mr. Vasudevan Subramanian, Managing Director, New Wave. Vasu, welcome. Delighted that you're with us.
Hi, thank you so much, Arjun. Thank you for having me as a part of this program. Thank you very much.
Vasu, we've got a fascinating set of conversations ahead, and I'm going to directly jump into this. If the events as they have unfolded over the last 18 months are any measure, thanks to the pandemic-led disruption of sorts that industry has been challenged with, has been faced with, I think one of the learnings and one of the experiences that has come forward as industry looks towards the future is the whole concept of resurgence and acceleration of value and building resilience at the very fabric of the enterprise. And when you kind of boil all of this down into one single term, Vasu, the whole concept seems to emerge of one, that is business modernization. As a managing director at New Wave, how do you see this entire business modernization piece evolving, and what, according to you, are foundational and critical pillars that industry and organizations must orchestrate in order to drive sustainable and successful business modernization forward? Vasu.
Yeah, so thank you, Arjun, for this question. So we at New Wave, we are focusing on 3 key solutions for our customers jointly with Dell Tech. One is workplace transformation or modernization. 2 is IT modernization. And 3rd one is the security modernization. So these are 3 key areas of focus. And these are also among the key priorities for CIOs today. So look at workplace transformation. This is one of the area that has transformed significantly over the last 2 years. I mean, for the right reasons, right? So employees had to work from anywhere, anytime, and from any device, right? So today companies are forced to give the employees the choice of devices they use in order to access applications and data from anywhere and any place, anytime.
Indeed.
With this decentralization, or rather you call it as a distributed workforce that they are managing today, there are a lot of huge challenges the IT organization is facing, Arjun. See, they need to, IT has to consider balancing freedom versus productivity of users in the new setup that they've gotten themselves into. So some of the challenges for IT, managing end-to-end life cycle of systems has become more complex now in the new setup. Look at managing diverse portfolio of hardware now. Different vendors, different devices, different operating environments. Today, customers have Windows, Apple Macs, so different operating environments. They have to manage all of these. Also they need efficient management tools, to do a wonderful job. They're looking at customers want self-service, and they're looking at automating deployments. And more importantly, you have to be proactive in providing support for all the end users. So this has put a lot of high workload on the IT organization.
Indeed.
So they end up wasting a lot of time sometimes, and which leads to very low productivity for the IT organization. So they're now looking for solutions to streamline how they can build, access, create, manage all these systems and data and applications in a more simpler manner and a more secure manner. That's what they want to do. So our solutions with Dell Tech will completely simplify things for them. And it will also bring down cost, complexity, and carbon for customers, which is very, very key right now, right? That's as far as the workplace transformation is concerned. Let's take a look at IT modernization. We see a lot of customers wanting to shift from current legacy IT infrastructure into a hybrid cloud infrastructure. That's what everybody wants to do. So they're going into this new infrastructure because they want to build a future-ready foundation for their organization that can run modern applications and virtual workloads. That's what they want to do. The outcomes they're looking for are 2 things, Arjun. One is they want to build an agile and a resilient IT infrastructure. And second is they also want to build a sustainable and a cost-efficient IT operating model. Because you see, the operating models are also going through a lot of transformation today, right? So the larger goal of IT essentially is to operate IT at the speed of business. That's what they want to achieve. So New Wave works on 3 important principles, Arjun. Modernize IT for customers, help them automate it, and then transform it. But finally, the goal is simple. Build a self-driving, cloud-ready data center for customers. That's what we want to do on IT modernization. Then the last aspect is the security modernization. So the price that customers will have to pay for an unsecured IT infrastructure in today's context is very, very costly, Arjun. So we provide solutions that helps customers protect data and applications residing across the edge, the core, and the cloud. Because data is sitting across the edge, core, and the cloud, and customers are looking for securing it across these 3 locations. We also help customers, get a control and protection of their network. Essentially, customers are looking at to manage the entire network through a single pane of glass. They want to do that. We help customers do that. And lastly, the topic of today, cyber recovery solution, which is today's topic. We help customers protect sensitive data, from attacks. So that's broadly what New Wave does jointly with Dell Tech in addressing, workplace transformation, ID transformation, and security modernization. That's what we do, Arjun.
It's interesting that you brought out CRS or the cyber recovery solutions, because like you rightly said, with the explosion of data, cyber recovery assumes far more significance than ever traditionally imagined. If you could quickly let us know the orientation of the focus towards the future as far as CRS is concerned and your partnership with Dell Technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. So we heard a lot today, but see, organizations impacted by ransomware globally has doubled this year. You know, when compared to last year, it's gone, you know, almost double. We're looking at approximately, you know, to put it in perspective, about 1,000 organizations being infected every week globally, Arjun. So organizations in Asia Pacific and more specifically in India are being targeted more than any other regions. What I hear is about 250 out of these 1,000 attacks are actually happening in India. So some of the target verticals include healthcare, insurance, IT, and manufacturing. These are the, you know, on top of the list. So therefore, we see organizations wanting to prepare themselves against all kinds of incidents and attacks, right? So you see the goal of the bad guys is to get a ransom. And they get it only when you do not have a clean copy to recover from, Arjun, right?
Yeah.
So for this reason, the backup systems and data are under direct attack these days. They're going after your backup.
Very true.
Unfortunately, there are many vulnerable points when it comes to backup systems. You know, the reason is because backups were always built for accessibility. They were not built for security. If you look at the fundamentals of backup, right?
Yes.
So backup systems often contain data catalogs. So if you encrypt or delete these data catalogs, it will become impossible for customers to recover. So while we continue to do everything to prevent the bad guys from entering our enterprise, our goal must be to bring your business back swiftly. Because the goal is what? You want to get your business back swiftly and securely, even when you're attacked. So for this to happen, you need an unaffected, clean copy of data and application. So you need that with you. So therefore, the challenge now is, how can an organization ensure that unaffected, clean data and applications are made available to them when they're attacked?
Indeed.
So this is what makes for a compelling reason to look at Dell's cyber recovery solution, Arjun. So as you saw in the presentation today, Dell Technologies has just added a layer of protection. You know, we call it making your enterprise cyber resilient. So this is just another topping to your already existing business continuity or disaster recovery strategies that customers already have. So this solution will not only restore your business capabilities back when attacked, but more importantly, will restore the trust of your stakeholders and customers.
Absolutely.
That's so important. So to summarize what you heard in the presentation, the solutions from Dell Technologies revolves around 4 simple steps. You know, the first thing is isolate your data into a cyber recovery vault. There's a cyber vault, a vault that provides physical isolation from production data centers. So that it creates an air gap. We heard that. So this makes the data completely invisible to the cyber attack. He can't even see it, right? That's first. Second is make it immutable, you know, with many levers of controls. And third is to apply analytics on this data. So you use tools that would scan, analyze, and report for over 200 threat vectors, right? That's going to actually, then with those analytics data that you capture, you can then remediate. You know, if you see any infected files, it allows you to remediate in order to build a very clean backup set that you want for your organization. So when the above solution is implemented, you can respond, recover, and resume normal operations swiftly, even when you're attacked.
Even when you're attacked. No, I couldn't agree more with what you're saying, Vasu, but I do have a view on the clock, and I know you've got a hard schedule ahead. But I've got a quick minute where I'm very curious. New Wave has been around for such a long time, and your own journey has evolved over the years. As you move into a new emergent Indian industry, organizations of different sizes, all racing to compete and accelerate value, how are you at New Wave orchestrating differentiation in your achievement of customer experience?
Absolutely. So thank you for asking that question. So we work very hard at exactly knowing what our customers are really looking for, and then we put all our efforts into providing what they want. We have come to learn that there are 3 touch points where we try to deliver a good experience for our customers. One is the exploration and the evaluation phase. So this is typically a pre-sales phase. In this phase, our goal is to work with the client to build the right solution. And the second phase is the execution phase. So this is when the fulfillment happens and the implementation actually happens. And here we focus on successful execution and make a happy customer, right? We want to make sure the project gets implemented and deployed, successfully. And the third is the optimization and the continuous transformation phase. So here our role is to be increasingly seen as a very strategic IT partner. So we look at 3 stages of touch points, and we want to make a difference in all of these 3 areas. So as far as the building the right solution for the customer is concerned, we first identify a specific IT transformation area for customer. And thereafter, what we do is we start initiating a lot of workshops with them where we evangelize those technologies. And then we do an assessment of the IT environment by using a few tools and some Q&A conversations with the customer. So by doing so, what happens, Arjun, is we gain a lot of insights into customers' environment.
Indeed,
so this insights helps us build a right solution for the customer and also build a strong business case for them.
Yeah,
So
I think
based on the merits of this proposal, we then move on to what we call as a show and tell stage, which is now running a POC. A lot of customers want to see what they're going to buy sometimes because they want to eliminate some of the key concerns that they have on the overall solution. So we run POCs, and finally what we do is we project manage the rollout, working jointly with the customers. That's as far as the solutioning phase is concerned. Second, I talked about execution phase, Arjun. Here we will work. We work well in order to be predictable. So the whole key in fulfillment and execution is being predictable and swift. Being swift and predictable in fulfillments and in driving IT services for our customers. We need to be very predictable. Second is we work towards bringing the right skill set because technologies, we integrate a lot of technology. So we need to bring right skill sets. We need to project manage. We need to know project management methodologies and also bring in a lot of client insights into every project because every project is unique.
Unique
so we
in
have
its
to
own
bring
nature.
Client insights and finally deliver on outcomes expected by the customers because what they want and what you think a project is completed is very different. So it's important to know what client's outcome is and you deliver on that outcome. That is as far as the execution is concerned. And what do you do after that? For increasing our role in becoming an IT partner, that's the aspiration. So for that, what we do, continuously engage, continuous engagement and delivering, like I said, predictable experience with customer across sales, pre-sales, and post-sales. Because what happens is you continuously have sales teams interacting, pre-sales teams interacting, and post-sales teams interacting. So the continuous engagement is very key. So throughout these interactions, we expand our engagement and end up doing 3 things. One is identifying unrecognized problems for customers within their environment. Second, we provide unanticipated solutions to some of the existing problems they're having, Arjun. And lastly, we can also sometimes create unseen opportunities for customers by working very closely with them.
Perhaps
that's how we approach it. Yeah.
Perhaps if I were to boil it down, the truest definition of partners in progress. But Vasu, that unfortunately is all that we have time for. It has been delightful speaking with you. Thank you so very much.
Likewise, Arjun, it's always wonderful talking to you and thank you for this opportunity once again.
Thank you. That, ladies and gentlemen, was I, Arjun Vishwanathan, your host in conversation with Vasudevan Subramaniam from New Wave. Stay tuned with us and we'll be back with the next segment in just a moment.
Thank you very much, Vasudevan and Arjun, for that engaging and engrossing conversation. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to a close. We'd like to thank all of you once again for joining us for today's episode of the webinar series on Proactive Business Resilience Insights. I thank you on behalf of Dell Technologies, New Wave, and Strategy. We hope that the sessions have been fruitful and insightful for all of you, and look forward to welcoming you at the next episode, which is scheduled for the 14th of September. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a great day ahead.